Hello, and welcome to the Three Links Oddcast, your podcast for all things having to do with Odd Fellowship. And now, here are your hosts.
Hello, and welcome to the Three Links Oddcast. I'm your co-host, Ainsley Heilich, and I'm here with...
Toby Hansen, another of your co-hosts, and we're so happy to have our third co-host back, Brother Sergio Paredes. Welcome back, brother.
Woohoo!
Thank you. It's good to be back. I missed you guys.
We
Been
missed
a while.
you too.
So, Sergio, you've been on loan to Material Sciences for a while. So what have you been doing? Some sciencey stuff?
You could say that, but unfortunately, that's about all I could say. It's kind of top secret, and they had me sign one of those fancy little NDA non-disclosure forms.
Come on, Sergio. We're all odd fellows here. Surely you can tell us, can't you?
Actually, I can't, and my name's not Shirley.
Oh, well, I guess it will just go down as one of the great mysteries of Odd Fellowship. Like, why do Rebecca's always serve Jell-O that has shredded vegetables in it? We'll never know. And we will never know what you were doing over at the Material Sciences Division. But it's great to have you back. And it's especially great to have you back for this episode because we have a couple of really wonderful guests from the Grand Jurisdiction of Virginia. They're going to be talking about the brand new lodge that was just chartered back there, Chester Lodge number 281. And we're going to start out with Brother Nick Curry. Go ahead and introduce yourself, brother.
Hello, everybody. So my name's Nick Curry. I'm the current Vice Grand for Chester 281.
All right. And who did you bring with you to the podcast?
This is Sister Janet Gibson. She is our Noble Grand for our first year. And I guess she can introduce herself.
Yeah, tell us a little bit, sister.
Well, I used to live in Milpitas, California.
Oh, just up the coast from Sergio.
Well, not even the coast, across the street pretty much. And I moved to Virginia in 1990 due to the USS Enterprise being transferred with my husband on the ship. And we liked it here, so we decided to stay. And let's see, I joined Theta Rho when I was 12. And I've been president of the Rebecca Assembly of Virginia. I was the first Grand Patriarch, female Grand Patriarch of Virginia. And I am past international secretary for the IARA.
Wow, that's quite impressive. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm currently secretary of the Assembly of Virginia, adjutant of the Department Council, and Grand Scribe of the Grand Encampment.
Wow, you got a lot of hats.
Yeah, where do you find time to sleep with all that?
I don't. And I used to do that while working 12 hours a day. I'm retired now, so.
Wow.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So, I first heard about this whole thing with a new lodge in Virginia, sometime last year when I was on Reddit, and there was a post saying, hey, is there anyone around Richmond who's interested in joining the Odd Fellows? I'm getting a new lodge going in Chester. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So I contacted Ainsley and said, hey, you spent some time in Virginia. Do you know anything about this? And so here we are now. You've got your charter and your meeting. So how did this all come about? Where did this idea first start?
So a little over a year ago, I decided that our community was missing something. Didn't know what it was. So really it started off with some Google search for organizations that's out there. Looked at the Eagles, Elks, all of those that I knew that our community didn't have. And Oddfellows came up. And so I've got this list, a mile long of different groups, and I'm researching each one of these. And every time I'm going through this list, Oddfellows, 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 that just kept coming. It was like circled around. And I finally gave up and I said, well, I guess it's meant to be. I'm going to be an Oddfellow. I threw the list out and started digging more into Oddfellows, and the more I dug, the more I liked it. And here we are. I've reached out to our Grand Lodge and made contact, and we had our first meeting with the Grand Lodge, some of the representatives from the Grand Lodge, in February of 2020. And we had met once or twice prior to meeting them to make sure that all of us, I think there was, I want to say there was 10 or 12 of us the first meeting or two, to make sure that's what we all wanted to do. We were all on board with it. And then we met with Jack and Janet and 4 others from the Grand Lodge. And they really helped us get the ball going. And here we are.
So what was it about the Oddfellows that you kept returning to over some of the other great organizations that you had mentioned that were on your list? What was it in particular that made the Oddfellows stand out from that pack for you?
The simplicity, but also the intricate meaning of friendship, love, and truth. It's so basic, but it covers everything. It covers a lot, you know. And in previous organizations that I've been involved with, you might get one of those and not the other two, or something of that nature. Those things usually become jobs. And when you're with a group and things like that become a job, you really lose your passion for what you're doing. That didn't really sound like what this would be. This sound like it. This is going to be people that are Oddfellows, from what I've learned and read and talked to. They're Oddfellows for a reason, and it's not for a job. You know, they're there for each other. They're there for their community, and that's what I was hoping for. That's what I was looking for, and several of us others that, you know, decided to go for this venture. So, and it was just like I said, it came back to me. You know,
Nice.
it wasn't always me reaching out to Oddfellows, but, you know, Google knows everything. So it started popping up more often than you would think. And
Darn those cookies.
right. But I would say the simplicity, but the intricate meaning of the friendship, love, and truth. And
Nice.
Now, when you started actually when you decided Odd Fellowship was what you were going to pursue, what did you find that was a common point of interest, that when you started telling people, like, oh, you know, have you heard of the Odd Fellows, or what was it that you noticed that caught people's attention? Was it also the friendship, love, and truth, or was it something other than that? What was it that people were like, oh, that's something that's unique that I want to pursue?
well, there are a few of us that we had been in previous organizations together with. So helping our community was something that was on the forefront of our mind. That's what we've done in the past, and that's what we wanted to continue to do. Something that was lacking in a lot of the previous organizations was the love, the brotherhood, the sisterhood. And so I would say that was probably an attractive feature of the organization for some of the others. I can't speak for them fully, but from my view to them, I would say that was probably a selling point. And its history, the longstanding history. Not too many organizations have that anymore. And the structure, I think the structure was very important to some of our members.
And what exactly is that sales pitch like? So you did the internet search, you found the Oddfellows, you said, this is what I think we need in our community. How do you then go approach people to say, hey, I know you've never heard of the Oddfellows, you know, even if you're a diehard fan of American Pickers, we've only been on there a couple times. And one of those was actually a guy in Virginia who had a whole shipping container full of old lodge stuff. I want to get this lodge going here in this town. How do you go out and find the people to help you form a lodge?
So our particular journey was almost sitting there on a platter waiting for us to find the group. I had several of us that were looking and interested and waiting, and there was a few others that came when we had our first meeting in January of 2020. This was not planned. It was found out that day, but it was held on January 15th, which is our founder's birthday.
That's right, Wildey Day.
Yeah, it was totally a coincidence. So it only concreted, what we were planning to do. When we had that meeting announcement, we put it in our paper, local newspaper that services our specific community. And there was a few private invites, and the people came off of that. Most of them were from the private invites. The newspaper ad, I think, brought one person. The need and the want from the members that we have now was already existing. It didn't really have a lot of sales, so to speak, a sales pitch for people that weren't already involved in my conversations with them. I kind of let them do their own research. I gave them the basic, tell them the motto, what it's about, helping each other out. It's about helping our community. Here's the websites, go read it yourself, because you're going to find a lot of information. And then if you have questions, come back.
It sounds like you pretty much had a core group of people you already knew, and you brought them in on the idea of getting together and kind of formalizing that group within a lodge.
Yes.
Okay. That's something important for people to know. If you already have a social network, that can be the basis of a new lodge. Our last episode, we talked to Brother Ivan Kocher of Dallas Lodge 44. And what happened with that lodge was a couple of charismatic people from the arts community joined that lodge. And because they already had connections out in the arts community, those people in the arts community said, oh, there's something going on at the Oddfellows Lodge. We want to be part of that. Using the personal connections is a great way to get people into Odd Fellowship, because it's relatively rare that anyone just kind of comes along, looks up at a building and says, 100F, I want to join that. More often what happens is there's some connection already that gets used to bring people in. So it's good that you already had that connection. Another thing that I'm hearing from you is your effort to start the new lodge was really dependent on the ability to share information on the internet with other people.
Yeah, so Reddit, like you said, you saw it on Reddit. Reddit and the Facebook communities were my two go-tos.
And what specifically did you do on Facebook to help get the lodge going?
Facebook, as far as our lodge specifically, outside of a couple meeting calls, on my Facebook page, I had posted this homemade, quick, throw it together kind of flyer. Oddfellows meeting coming up on this date. Reach out for more information. I didn't put location. I don't even think I put the time. And I left it pretty simple. So everybody's like, Oddfellows, what is that? So it made them ask. And that's how I talked to a few people. And then after we started having our regular meetings, Facebook, I still post it occasionally. I may post that flyer, something like that. But right now, Facebook is more for our communications. We have, a group on there that we utilize, and we have a private chat that we utilize between the members. And Reddit, I didn't get a lot of. I had a few comments here and there, but Reddit was not as active as my Facebook response was.
Yeah, the Oddfellows community on Reddit is very small. I think it's about 320 people. Not a lot is going on right now, so there aren't a whole lot of posts about anything. It's the Oddfellows Reddit is usually I found this old sword with these letters on it. What does this mean? What's it worth? Who wants to buy it from me? And like I had somebody who found an old Patriarch's Militant cap from California, and he said, "What's it worth?" I said, I don't really know. Maybe some wide-eyed Oddfellows collector will want it, but there really isn't much intrinsic value. It's just an old hat from California. And so that's kind of what happens a lot on Reddit. Sometimes we do have really great discussions. For example, we got in touch with Grandmaster Mike Zarell of the jurisdiction of New York through Reddit. He reached out to me after I posted about the podcast on Reddit, and he was an excellent guest and gave us one of our best episodes all time. Because he was really articulate and really great about talking about what was going on with the Grand Lodge of New York. So there can be some good connections there, but it's still a very small community where things kind of happen slowly.
And I believe the pandemic didn't really help
No.
some of this stuff. So, I mean, if you think about it, we had our first meeting in January, and then we met twice in February, twice in March, and that was it as far as in-person meetings until October.
So outside of the Facebook, the Oddfellows community group and the Reddit, your main resource to try to kind of hook people in was the IOOF.org website, and then whatever resources from your Grand Lodge and them assisting you.
That's about right. Yes.
Yeah. So having a Grand Lodge that was very hands-on and active was definitely a helpful aspect, I take it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That was as a hint to all those Grand Lodges out there that have people that want to start lodges and they don't do anything to help these people start their lodges, and then the lodges either lose interest and go away, or so if you're in a Grand Lodge and somebody starts a lodge, make sure you stick with them and do like Janet and be the Noble Grand for the first year. That's how, when I got my lodge going about 6 years ago, they sent some folks from the Grand Lodge to stick with us for the first year and make sure we got going on the right foot and weren't just left to our own devices. And we still can't get rid of them. So I think we're stuck.
When folks from the Grand Lodge are like, I like these guys, let's go hang out with them, let's go to their meetings, that's a compliment. Because
yes,
speaking as a past Grand Master, I had the opportunity and the obligation to go visit every lodge in the state. And I did that. And I will say, I definitely had the lodges where I was like, I would go back to that lodge anytime.
Well, currently we have the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Virginia, the Grand Warden of the Grand Lodge of Virginia, and 2 past Grand Masters, and the Grand Secretary that belonged to Chester.
Wow, that's impressive.
Oh, that's a powerhouse right there.
Yeah.
Look out.
How did you get all of those prestigious members in your lodge so quickly?
Well, one was my husband. He's the Grand Secretary.
Okay.
And he's a past Grand Master. And then we have Steve Taylor is the Grand Master this year, and Louise Schwarting is the Grand Warden. And then we have C.C. Kurtz, who is a past Grand Master, and his wife Lois, who is a past President of the Assembly, as well as a past Grand Patriarch. So, and this year for our annual sessions, we're trying a new way of doing it so that the women meet at a separate time than the men, so that the women that are Oddfellows can finally attend the Grand Lodge meetings. I attended Grand Lodge back in 2004 when I was a past Grand, and I got the Grand Lodge degree, and they wanted me to run for Grand Warden. I said, no, I'm too new of an Odd Fellow. I know Rebecca's in Theta Rho, but it's not the same as Rebecca's in Theta Rho. I appreciate it, but no. That's how we have so many high rollers in our lodge.
Our lodge has been beyond blessed with the resource and the talent and the help from our Grand Lodge.
The people that have joined, the members of this lodge, are so diverse, but everyone gets along so well. It's amazing. I've never been to a lodge or seen a lodge that works so well together, that everybody is so happy to be there and willing and able to learn. They're all excited. Nick's done an excellent job getting people together to join, and they all want to do good things for their community. They're talking about running these big bingos to earn funds to build a building and help the community, and they're all gung-ho. So it's awesome.
Once you got the core group of people who were interested in starting a lodge, how long would you say it took? How long before you noticed that the Grand Lodge stepped in and said, hey, is there anything we could do to help you out, or before they offered their assistance?
Well, we met in mid-January for our first meeting. We had a second meeting in early February, and our third meeting is when our Grand Lodge joined with us in about the middle of February.
Yeah.
Oh, so fairly early on, they jumped right in.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Very receptive.
Well, Nick contacted me, and we started texting back and forth, and that's when we contacted, the Grand Master, and of course my husband, the Grand Secretary. So that's how we started communicating with them, and we felt that in order for them to get started, that we would become associate members and help them out.
That's awesome. That's really, I think that's really makes the difference, and what makes Odd Fellowship so unique is just the networking that sometimes is there without people even realizing that there is a network to be tapped into. Right. So I think that's probably a very powerful thing that Odd Fellows have. And one of my current or most recent experience was I had Ace Adams from, I believe it was Silver and Grand Lodge. He hit me up saying, hey, we have somebody in California who's looking to get some information. And just by throwing that out into the Ethernet, I got in contact with the California Grand Secretary. He was able to give me some contact. And then by this week, I was able to give that gentleman contact that he was trying to get, and he wasn't able to. But by tapping into the network of Odd Fellows, within a week, he was able to get a phone number that he could actually call. So that's something I noticed throughout the US is just, this strong network of, if it's like the Wayne's World, if you build it, they will come.
Yes. Now that brings up something really interesting here. Number one, props to the Grand Secretary in California, because Sergio, your jurisdiction has a wonderful Grand Secretary, Barry Prock. He does a great job. All of our West Coast Grand Secretaries, from Becky in British Columbia all the way down the coast, they're all really fantastic and really hardworking and really responsive about getting information out. But it shows something that's really important, which is if you're an outsider, if you are not connected to Odd Fellowship, you've not been a part of it yet, and you want to get on the inside, you almost have to go on this mythic quest to find where the secret hidden entrance is where you can get information. Now, anything else, if you want information about it, it's readily available on the internet. If you want to buy a new dishwasher, you can go to a website, whether it's your local appliance store or the manufacturer, to get all the information you want on a dishwasher. But if you want to join the Odd Fellows, let's say you've been reading about it, you saw an episode of American Pickers, you ran across this podcast randomly, and you're like, gee, I'd really love to join this organization. It sounds great. That's when the mystery quest begins, because you have to go around, nobody looks things up in phone books anymore. Almost nobody does anything with the local newspaper. There's no longer the lodge hall sitting there downtown with the sign on the top that says IOOF, meeting every Tuesday, 7 o'clock. So how does an outsider get the information that they need to be able to join? This is the great puzzle for Odd Fellowship to solve going forward. Because individual lodges can make websites, they can make Facebook groups for the lodge, and then there are jurisdictional websites which list all the lodges in a jurisdiction, and the wonderful Sovereign Grand Lodge website that we have now, odd-fellows.org, I think it is.
Yeah, it's still attached to the IOOF.org.
Yeah, and IOOF.org.
Yeah.
But we have a few good sources of information, but it's still not as easy as it should be to find a local lodge. If you are in, just as a random example, somewhere in Eastern Oregon, you say, I want to be an Odd Fellow. What's the best lodge to join? How can I get information? You could join Willow Lodge number 66 in Heppner, Oregon. But how would you know that? How can you find that out? And this is what makes the story of chartering this new lodge in Virginia so interesting, because, Nick, you have solved that. You literally took the mystery quest and figured it out. And not only have you figured it out, you also went along and did something else we want to talk about this episode, which is writing a website for the Grand Lodge of Virginia so other people can find Odd Fellowship.
We think, well, let me rephrase it. We know that Odd Fellowship in Virginia is going to grow, is going to go back on an uptick. But to do that, we have to meet today's standards, today's times, today's avenues. And so creating a website for the lodge specifically, that was just like, oh, I got to create a website. It's just on the list of to do. I guess, I don't know, maybe that's just the young person's way of thinking. I don't know. But just, I was like, oh, we got to create a website. Let me do that real quick. And the Grand Lodge one, when I had proposed the idea to the Grand Lodge that, hey, we need a website, and they said, go for it. It didn't take long. They got me all the information that I needed. I think I had it put together in, I don't know, a week or two.
Couple hours.
Probably realistically a couple hours. But I spent it over a week or two and got all the okays I needed and published it. And Ansley gave me the idea of the map.
Yes,
because I wanted to put the lodges on there somehow, some way, and I didn't know that Google Map thing was even an option. So I thought that was cool. So,
Yeah.
And it's really neat to look at. It's really neat to go in and look at your jurisdiction and then see all these blue dots or pink dots or however you got them labeled, and you're like, oh wow, there's more of us in this state than you probably realize.
The visual of the map is always a really just puts it right there. Like the websites that have a list, I'm still grateful to any jurisdiction that A, has a website, and B, if that website has a list of where all the lodges are. But if I'm trying to help somebody locate a lodge, it doesn't help me a lot because I don't know where all those towns are.
Right.
So a map is just the most beautiful way to do it. So I commend you on investing that, several evenings or week of evenings of time, because that's going to pay back in 10, 20 fold over the next handful of years.
You had a really wonderful situation there with Grand Lodge leadership that said, oh, there's someone who's willing to put in some effort on behalf of Odd Fellowship. Let's support that. Not every Grand Lodge is that forward thinking. Not everybody's going to say, oh, we realize the value of someone who's willing to put in effort on our behalf, and so we're going to support that. I have personally seen, and Ainsley, I know you've experienced this, there are other jurisdictions where there may have been an attempt to build a website, put something together, and it faltered. They got the domain, they let it lapse. I know of a jurisdiction out west here, I don't want to say who, but it's a very mountainous state, that they had a website and somebody said, why are we paying for this? We don't think we're getting any members from it. And they just shut it down. And that's very, very sad, because if you do not make Odd Fellowship available to the public, you won't have anyone joining your lodges. And then you get to the classic lodge situation near the end of the death spiral, where it's 6 old men on a Tuesday afternoon complaining about how no one wants to join. And people do want to join. There are people out there who are saying, my life is empty. I've been sitting around in my bathrobe watching Netflix for a year and eating ice cream every night. I need socialization. Where can I go to do something that is a little bit structured and a little bit fun and community oriented? Well, we've got the answer right here, but we're not telling anybody about it.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is probably a good place for us to take a quick break and listen to a message from our wonderful sponsors, Pig and a Pug Bath Stuff. So we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with some more great information from Brother Nick and Sister Janet from Virginia right after this.
All right, be honest. How much do you spend on coffee every month? $20? $50? $1,500? Well, that's probably not realistic. Anyway, I digress. Where was I? Oh yeah, Pig and a Pug. For the price of one of your not as good as last time lattes, one of your, what is this, 90% milk macchiatos, or about 350 cups of Folgers, you can get yourself some handmade soap. Yeah, handmade, and with the best ingredients and the most attention to detail that you could conceivably ask for. This stuff smells so good, it will align your chakras, send out multiple namastes, and best yet, make you smell like you don't spend the majority of your time these days walking around in your pajamas. Being that we're all home a lot more these days, we might even just take more showers just because we're bored. And it's fine for that too. Smell good whenever you want. Each order is packed with the greatest of care and includes freebies and loads of positivity. Listen, don't start an argument by telling the people that you love or people that you live with that they stink. Just get them a bar of soap, and Robert is your father's brother. So, take a minute, pop over to Etsy or Facebook and look up Pig and a Pug. Just bang in the coupon code THANKYOU24 and you're going to get 24% off your order. Literally, that's all you have to do. Pig and a Pug, Pig and a Pug, Pig and a Pug.
And we're back. That was a great infomercial about Pig and a Pug. I have some of their soaps myself, and I gotta say, they are fantastic. They come in fun shapes. Some are very Oddfellow relevant, like owls and skulls, and they're different sizes of skulls. So if you like soaps and skulls, definitely check out Pig and a Pug. Now, as we mentioned earlier, I had spent some time in Virginia. I moved there as a 10-year-old in 1990, and I stayed through graduation of college in 2002. So I was blissfully unaware of Odd Fellowship until I had moved to Illinois in my mid 30s ish, or early 30s rather. So there apparently was a lodge that at the time was active in my hometown in Radford. And I believe now it has merged with Blacksburg.
Yeah.
So it was literally right under my nose growing up. And then I went to college at VCU in Richmond, Virginia. And funnily enough, this is my first Oddfellow connection. This is a rare story. I don't tell it much. So there was a like a vintage thrift type clothing store in Carytown. I can't remember the name now. It's gone. But I was into marching band stuff really heavy because I was a big band geek, and I bought this old marching band jacket, and on the collar of it, it has the IOOF, and I didn't know what it meant. And of course, me not knowing anything about the Oddfellows, I assumed it was 100F as well. But in my possession since myself being an 18-year-old, that was my first Oddfellow item in my collection without even realizing it. So that being said, I would love to hear more about Odd Fellowship in Virginia, and how many lodges are there and how active it is, membership. Give me the stats of the current state of the order in the lovely Commonwealth of Virginia.
Well, we probably should have had Jack on tonight. He's the Grand Secretary, but I believe the Odd Fellows are 27 lodges currently.
That's a lot more than I expected. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good for a state the size of Virginia.
I can tell you on our newfound website.
Oh, there you go.
Really? It sounds so useful to have a website.
Yeah. Please give us the URL of this wonderful new website.
I'll just give you the breakdown. There are 30 Oddfellow lodges, 16 Rebecca, 7 encampments, 5 cantons, and 2 of the Lady Auxiliary Patriot Military.
Wow.
Awesome. And what's the website? What's the URL for that?
For the Grand Lodge of Virginia, it's oddfellowsvirginia.org all together.
Virginia spelled out, or
yes.
VA? Virginia.
Spelled out.
Nice. So oddfellowsvirginia.org.
And if you go to the website, go to the contact page and leave us a note that you visited and tell us one thing you liked about our website.
That's a great call to action.
I'm looking at the website right now, and I love the 2 pictures that you have on the main page. The one on the left of all the Oddfellows in their regalia, and then the one on the right of the old building. That is beautiful.
That is actually the, Janet, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that is the Lynchburg, the home that we had in Lynchburg.
Oh, yes. We just recently sold that. Oh, that was the original orphanage that was built, eons ago. And it was located on Oddfellows Road in Lynchburg, right off of 29.
And there's still an Oddfellows Road there too in Lynchburg, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. So with all those lodges and the different branches and everything, how has the other lodges and Oddfellows been towards the newest lodge?
Well, because we've not been meeting a whole lot, a lot of them don't really know about the lodge yet. However, there are a few lodges that have already made monetary donations to help them out. And
awesome.
With supplies, and of course Sovereign Grand Lodge sends a few things to new lodges, and I believe Nick is going to attend the Grand Lodge session this year so he can see what's going on.
I started when I was working on the website, I started going down the list of all of the lodges all of them, the Rebeccas, the encampments, everything, and contacting their secretaries that we have listed and just verifying their information. And all of those conversations have been very few because my time is limited on being able to make some of these phone calls. Everybody has been like, if there's anything that we can do for you, you please let us know. I don't know what I can do, but just call me. We'll take care of you. We'll help you. And that just speaks. I mean, I didn't know them from Adam, and we're all brothers and sisters now. We're right there, and it's like we've known each other for years in some of these conversations. So.
That's really one of the most compelling things about Odd Fellowship for me. When you are an Odd Fellow, it means that you really are part of this worldwide fraternity of people who, if they know something is up, they are there to help you out.
Right.
Last year we had an episode where we talked to Brother Wilbert Lemuel and Brother Mario Guzman, who just started Family Lodge 293 up the coast from you guys in New Jersey. And they had a little bit more of a rocky start with getting other people on board with what they were doing. There was a certain amount of skepticism that those brothers had to face when they were getting started with their lodge. So it's wonderful to hear that so many of the other lodges in Virginia were supportive of what you are doing. So that's another really essential part of Odd Fellowship is the mutual aid. If we have the opportunity, like let's say you go to any other southern state and you want to start a lodge in the capital city, I imagine that pretty much every other lodge in that state would be like, you want a high profile lodge in our capital city that's going to really reflect well on this organization, we'll do anything we can to help you out and make sure that happens. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. It doesn't always happen like that, where you get that kind of unqualified support that comes from the efforts to promote Odd Fellowship.
Yeah.
Tying back into what you said about the worldwide thing, when we announced our charter, being chartered, I can't even keep count how many people reached out, but there was a brother in Ghana, in the new Ghana
Yes.
that
Nice.
reached out, and he said, I'm going to come visit you at some point. I will be there. And I want to say that those two brothers from Family Lodge told me that they would eventually make their way down to us and visit our lodge. Had several people reach out and say, we want to come visit you. We want to come visit you. So I'm like, come on, let's go. Let's do it.
Now, admittedly, it is easier to get to where you're at in Chester from New Jersey than it is from sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah.
You could probably drive there from New Jersey. You'd at least have to take a plane coming in from Accra, Ghana. But I know who you're talking about. We've had some really wonderful international growth lately with the new lodge in Ghana, the new one last year in Brazil, and then the new one that was just chartered in Lebanon. I mean, we are getting some fantastic growth in Odd Fellowship that's happening globally. I mean, outside of our traditional bases of North America and Europe, which is fantastic. Now, I got another question for you. So you started this lodge in Chester, Virginia. I'm guessing you probably didn't have a lodge hall that was already preset with its tattoo parlor downstairs, like some lodges we could mention. So how did you find a meeting place, and where are you meeting now?
So our first few meetings, we were meeting out in public. As we were before the pandemic, we were meeting at a restaurant typically. When we started,
those were our organizing meetings.
Yes.
Before we got.
We were organizing, so our intention was to have our first meeting at a restaurant, our second meeting of the month. We were having like a business style, and we were doing those at a place called BizWorks, which is a a hub for new businesses to get started in the community. They rent an office space, or in some cases a warehouse space in this hub. And I sit on the board for the Jefferson Davis Highway, which is Route 1 through Chesterfield County. I sit on that board as a board member. And so we have an office. Our organization 30 years ago started the BizWorks. So I had a very good relationship with BizWorks, the leadership in that group, and they offered up their meeting space to us. That has become basically our lodge hall for now. And they've opened up to us. They've been very great, and they told us stay as long as we need. Wow. So we're on a hunt for a place, but right now we do have a place to call home.
So obviously right now things are a little throttled because of the pandemic. So it's a lot more difficult to be a very outward lodge right now and have a lot of activities. So what kind of stuff is the lodge kind of doing right now to kind of keep active, and what kind of plans do you have once things do open up to get out there into the community?
So we put together a Ways and Means committee and a Goodwill committee, so we can look at some fundraising aspects for the lodge and some Goodwill activities, charitable projects for the area. On the fundraising side, we're in the process of starting a bingo. Very popular in the area. The place that we're got our hearts set on, they do really good business, big business. Even during the restrictions and everything, it's a big hall. So they have about 100 people on a regular.
Oh, wow.
Well, let me rephrase it. The last 2 nights, because I've been down there Tuesday and Wednesday night, and they had over 100 people both nights, still within their COVID restriction guidelines, because they can normally hold up, I think, about 300 people. They normally have about 70 people. That's going to be our fundraising avenue. It's decent money. And in Virginia, when you do have bingo, as a business owner, you can't just start up a bingo just to make money. You have to be a legal nonprofit organization, and a certain percentage of those funds have to be distributed back into the community in some fashion. Hello, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's perfect for an
That's exactly it.
It's just gonna fit perfectly. So there's a lot of potential there. So we're working on that. On the Goodwill side, one of our members, Brother Ernie Taylor, he is actually the leader for Backpacks for the Homeless, RVA. And so we've been working with him on trying to figure out what we can do to support his organization. So I believe it's on April 8th, we're doing a peanut butter and jelly making thing. So we'll put together several hundred sandwiches, and he'll have them for when they go on their walks through the city of Richmond, and in some cases in Chesterfield and Hopewell, and distribute the sandwiches to the homeless. And unfortunately, the homeless community is growing over the last year and a half. So that's just a small project that we're starting off with. We're looking forward to getting out there more as restrictions lighten up a little bit and we're able to do more. We have some members that are virtual only, but they've been great. They've been supportive in any way they can. So,
and I'm sure Richmond has a plethora of opportunities for you guys to latch onto and help out. So that definitely it's good to hear that, with the homeless community. I remember when I was a student at VCU, and I think once a month, the local crust punks would do a Food Not Bombs, like a stand up, like a outside food kitchen in Monroe Park. And I never took part in it, but I always thought that was like such a cool thing to do, but I was too shy to talk to them. Mm-hmm. But that always stuck with me that, look, there's these, they were crust punks, with their, crust punk vests and their, dogs with bandanas on, and they're feeding the homeless, and they themselves were practically homeless themselves. And that was something that impacted me. And, the Richmond is a very, a community that is diverse with a lot of good things going on and a lot of struggle. And I definitely I'm excited to see what you guys do in not only in your bubble of the kind of suburbs of Richmond, but also in the metro area as well, and how that affects things.
Well, I would say if anybody listening, if you have a local organization that is really boots on the ground with your homeless community, you should go on a walk with them, just one day. Usually in December, the Backpacks for the Homeless for our community will do their annual walk, which are distributing backpacks and all sorts of stuff. I went on that walk. I didn't go on that specific walk. I went on a surprise walk. I didn't know that I was going on a walk. I thought we were going to go visit one or two people, and then, I was done for the day. No, it was several hours later and aching muscles and bones later. We walked the entire city of Richmond, it felt like. But it's very humbling. It's freezing cold in December, January, February. And the only thing that kept me out there, I won't say the only thing, but the main drive for keeping me out there was these people are living like this. I'm only out here for a couple hours. So it's very humbling. So if you have a local group in your area that's boots on the ground, that does a walk, distributing backpacks or whatever they may be doing, I very much encourage you to be a part of that at least once, just to see what it's like and see how people unfortunately have to live. And it may spark something for your lodge to get involved with, or any other group that you may be with. So, and I will say that also our lodge is not only blessed with having the Grand Lodge representatives being our associate members and being with us every step of the way, but our regular membership is amazingly resourceful. I mean, we have the leader for Backpacks for the Homeless. We have two leaders for our local arts, our theater group called Broken Lake Theater. We have a former county fair manager. And when you say county fair, if you think about Chesterfield County is the third or fourth largest county in the state of Virginia. That's a decent sized fair. We just have a very resourceful, very diverse group of membership. All of this is just tied together so beautifully. And we're excited. We really are. We really are.
So it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities for kind of a cross-pollination and cross-promotion of the members who are kind of tied to other organizations, and kind of being able to tie that in with Oddfellows and kind of mix it all up a little bit and kind of feed their group, and then their group can feed Oddfellows. And it's definitely exciting to, see that you guys have so much kind of know-how already coming into the game, and especially in the nonprofit sector. And so it's not like everybody's just kind of wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and deer in headlights. Right. You already have a kind of it sounds like you have a good sense of the direction you want to take the lodge and what kind of projects you want to focus on, especially in an area where how do you start? Where do you pick? There's so many things, but it seems like you already have a really good foot in the door with certain projects to really make a good impact with. So that's great to hear.
And another crossover that there's three of us that are members of our local Grange, if you're familiar with the Grange.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Now, one of the founders.
I'm sure Oregon and Washington probably have Granges.
We have a lot of Granges here. And one of the founders of the Grange was, of course, an Oddfellow.
Yes.
Esteemed Reverend Grosh. Yes.
Yes, Aaron Grosh.
Yeah, our local Grange's master was surprised when I told him that. I said, "Don't you know that one of your founders come from my group?" It's like, what?
Yeah, I discovered that because we have over in central Washington, there's a little town of Leavenworth. Not the prison in Kansas. It's the little fake Bavarian town on the Wenatchee River. And they have a Grange Hall in town, the Chumstick Grange. And in the Chumstick Grange, they have all the pictures up on the wall of all the historic things. And there's Reverend Grosh's picture on the wall. He's wearing his 50-year jewel as an odd fellow in the picture. I walked in, I was like, I know what that is. That's another cool thing about being an odd fellow, is that when you are an odd fellow, all of a sudden you understand a lot of those hidden and or forgotten symbols that are still around in places, you know, from stuff that's carved on tombstones, the pediments of old buildings. You start to recognize these signs and symbols all around you. You're like, oh yeah, I am part of that. Those things are meaningful to me now.
Well, another good part of Odd Fellowship is like us moving from California to Virginia. We knew absolutely no one. So I looked for the closest lodge, which is in Poquoson, and went and visited them for a meeting. And I felt like I had known them my whole life. I mean, and that's just how Oddfellows and Rebecca's are.
Yes.
That's great to bring that up.
That is
and
one
you,
of my
you just
favorite
always,
things about it,
you
too.
always feel at home because they'll open your house to you if you have no place to stay. If you're traveling cross country and you have a flat, or, you know, our daughter went to Virginia Tech. That was 4 hours from where we lived. One of the Odd Fellows lived between Blacksburg and Newport News and told Brandy, anytime she went home or anytime she was going back to Tech, if she needed anything, or if she had a flat tire, or when it snowed so bad that she couldn't drive anymore, that she was always welcome, you know, to come to their house. And if she needed them, they would come and help her out if she was stuck somewhere. But you have people all over the place that we're here to help each other.
So touching back on when you said when you moved from California to Norfolk and went to Poquoson and saw the lodge there and felt like they were family. That's a great thing to bring up, because especially these days, I think I recently read some statistic that in America, we move on average now 11 times in our lives. And because jobs are not like they used to be, where you get one job, you stay there for 30 years and you get your pension, you retire. You have to keep getting new jobs. That's just the state of how it works now. And say if you do, goes back to the beginning of Odd Fellowship. If you move somewhere new, you already have your social group in place and you already know people there. You're not showing up a stranger, even though you might not know their names or who they are. You know they're an Odd Fellow, and you at least have that bond with them. So that way it's less scary if you're moving someplace and you know there's a lodge there waiting for you, at least in somewhere in the area that you can go check out and have some sort of normalcy in your life, that it's, you know, makes it less of a daunting, scary task, and it helps put you in touch with people to start your new network in your new community.
Right. Exactly.
So speaking of community, Janet, you have mentioned on the break about a lodge hall you guys are working on.
Yes, we're turning it into an activity center where we can have our Grand Lodge sessions there, or Rebecca Assembly sessions there. We don't have any lodging there, but there is a hotel within 1.5 miles from the building. It's a nice big hall on a big piece of property, and it's centrally located. We're refurbishing it for our needs, but also we could rent it out for weddings or receptions, or like I said during the break, they're bringing the restrooms up to handicap standards, installing more stalls than we had before. They're gutting the whole kitchen. We're getting all custom cabinets. And one thing I thought was very interesting is Louise Schwarting, I'm working with her on getting everything done for the inside, suggested getting drawers to put pots and pans in on the bottom instead of cabinets, because when you open the cabinets, you can never find what you're looking for. And half the time it's stuck behind everything else. And so if you have drawers, you can just stack them in the drawers and you don't have to worry. Because we're all getting older and it makes it a lot easier to find things.
That's
modern
great.
problem.
Yeah,
Modern solutions
brilliant.
for modern problems.
Well, that's wonderful that you'll then have this jewel of a facility to not only be rental income and be a place for members to use, but it's also great advertisement for the order. If somebody's going to have a wedding there, or a quinceañera, or whatever, any community related event that they need a space to rent, once they start knowing, oh, there's that place you could rent, that Oddfellows place, and then next thing you know, people are like, oh, I've been to like 3 or 4 different events here. What's this? What's the name? What's going on? And then it's a great way to farm for new members and try to hook them in. So I commend the Grand Lodge of Virginia for doing something proactive like that. That's a very smart move.
Well, we also have 2 Rebecca lodges in the area, one in Madison Heights and one in Lynchburg and one in Madison Heights, and they both meet in that building. And it was getting so bad. One of the ladies said that every time she comes, she has to come to lodge about an hour early if it's rained to check for leaks. So she put buckets around where all the leaks were. So that's when we realized, well, we need to get a new roof on there. And we started looking around, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. So why don't we take some of this income that we received from the sale of a lodge hall and put it to good use. So the Rebeccas are paying half and the Grand Lodge is paying half, so because it's a jointly owned building. And I think it's going to come out real nice. I'll take some pictures and I'll have Nick put them on the website.
Awesome.
So you can see them.
It's very refreshing to have a Grand Lodge that is not only embracing the technology of the website, they jumped on board wholesale to get a new lodge going. You're getting a facility up and running. So it sounds like you've got a lot of great things coming down the line. And I really look forward to hearing and seeing more from you.
Yeah. We just need new and more younger members. That's the only problem.
Yeah, and that's what we're all here to help with as well. Yeah. So do you guys have any advice to somebody looking to start a new lodge, either from the helping end of the Grand Lodge or from the new members starting a lodge end?
Well, I would say mine would be you need to at least have a core group of interested people first before going any further. And once you have that, you can build on that a little bit. And you got to have your Grand Lodge involved. I don't know that we would have ever gotten to where we are without our Grand Lodge. You've got to have a Grand Lodge that can support you in some shape, form, or fashion.
Amen.
That's just my experience. So I don't know what that road would have looked like without our Grand Lodge. I don't want to know what it would have looked like. So, reach out, bug your Grand Lodge, get them on board with you.
Yeah, that's really, really important advice, because the Grand Lodge is the group that's in charge of granting charters. You know, it's got to go before the Grand Master and he's got to approve it. And then the Grand Lodge at their next meeting will ratify the charter to ensure that that is a real actual lodge with a real actual charter. So having that involvement from the Grand Lodge from the beginning and knowing that they are invested in the process, that is super important for having success. It just absolutely is.
Yeah, Chester was actually pretty lucky because it just so happened that the group of us that are working with them are very close friends. We live 3 hours apart, but we live an hour and a half from Chester, but 3 hours from Stephen, Louise, and Cece and Lois. It's just part of Odd Fellowship. You're there to help, whether you're a Grand Lodge officer or just a lodge member from another lodge that's willing to help out with getting a new lodge. I don't know, I've been a member for 56 years now, I think.
Mhm.
And it's part of my life. It's just something you do. You're an Odd Fellow or a Rebecca. And I happen to be all of them. So it's a great organization. That's all I can say.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here on the Three Links Oddcast. It's been wonderful to have both of you. Before we go, we always wrap up with a segment called the Odd Podge, where you get the opportunity to share something you want to share. Doesn't necessarily have to be about Odd Fellowship. So we'll give you a moment to think about that. And while you think about what you might want to share for the Odd Podge, we're going to do our lodge shout out, because we always like to recognize great things that lodges are doing all around the country and all around the world now. And this episode, our lodge shout out is going to go to the subject of our previous episode, which is Dallas Lodge 44 in Dallas, Texas. They are really involved in the Living Legacy program. For those not familiar with it, the Living Legacy program is a program we have through the Sovereign Grand Lodge where individual lodges go out and plant trees. Dallas 44 has been a really big supporter of Living Legacy. And I think it was on Facebook, I saw that they just planted some incredibly large number of fruit trees in an area of Dallas that does not have ready access to fresh fruit. So not only are they doing something to further the Living Legacy program and increasing the number of trees in their city, they're doing it with really useful trees that are going to help address a need in their community, so that community members will be able to get things like fresh apples, pears, peaches, and other tree fruits like that. I think that is just fantastic. And all of us here at the Three Links Oddcast really want to applaud Dallas 44 for their continuing commitment and involvement with the Living Legacy program.
That's awesome.
So now to the Odd Podge. I'm going to go first on this one. I have something that's absolutely, totally, completely not related to Odd Fellowship. This afternoon, I was sitting here in my home studio where I do all of my home studio things. My wife came in, she said, "Did you see the doe in the backyard?" No, I didn't. Now, here in my studio, I have a big sliding glass door that's right behind me. And normally, because I was teaching today, I have to keep the blinds closed so my lessons aren't overcome with glare from the sun. So I went over to the blinds and I peeked through the blinds, and sitting maybe 6 feet away from where I was out in the backyard was this big, huge, magnificent doe. She was just, she looked like she had had kind of a hard winter. And this is the beginning of the time when the deer will start migrating around Western Washington. And so I had a wonderful experience with nature up close and personal today. So that's my Odd Podge. Now, who would like to go next?
I'll go next.
All right.
So I'm going to be boring again, and until
You're
the book
not
comes
boring, Ainsley. You're specialized.
I'm gonna keep recycling this one until it's out. So everybody's gonna hear me at length go on and on and on about the Odd Fellows primer coming out. Hopefully summer, early summer is what we're shooting for. And it's going to be a manual that will teach any Odd Fellow, young or old, all the nuts and bolts of how to be an Odd Fellow, and not only being an Odd Fellow, but how to do your meetings, the Grand Lodge, Sovereign Grand Lodge. It breaks down everything into one nice book that's well written, has wonderful illustrations, and that's because I did only some of them, but some of them are, that's a lie. I have 75 illustrations that I contributed to the book, and there's 75 historic images as well in it. So there's over 150-ish images in it. So it's resplendently illustrated. The writing is fantastic. Michael Greenziger of California, the soon-to-be Grandmaster, did a fantastic job. We are super excited about it. Yeah, we're excited for it to be in everybody's hands. So it will help everybody be a better Odd Fellow. And hopefully some of you out there listening, you don't even have to be an Odd Fellow to purchase it. Every episode until it's out, I'm going to be probably using that as my Odd Podge. So yeah.
Wait.
Chester wants a signed copy.
Yes. And we will be doing bulk discounts for lodges.
Yeah, because one of the great things about this book, I've gotten the opportunity to preview a couple parts of it. It really is an instruction manual for Odd Fellowship. It is exactly what the title says, Odd Fellow's Primer. You want to know how to be an Odd Fellow, how things function. This book explains it all and does really well. Every lodge out there should buy several copies and give them out to new members. You get initiated, you get that white collar put on your neck, you get a copy of the Odd Fellows Primer. So lodges out there that are listening, start putting some money away in your budget to buy copies of this book, because it will be incredibly valuable for new members. It's something that I think is really going to go a long ways to strengthening Odd Fellowship and really getting people the kind of information they need to get up to speed and be functional members really quickly. And I applaud you, Ainsley, for doing all the work on it. Brother Scott from Arkansas, who's doing some of the editing, and of course, Brother Michael in California, who did the daunting task of creating a modern primer for Odd Fellowship. That is just amazing.
So oddfellowsprimer.org is the website. Anybody who has any questions can feel free to hit me up or go to the website and message. And yeah, it's basically like a school of instruction and then some.
Okay, who's next up for the Odd Podge? Who's got something to share?
So after, showing great interest, kind of going along the route of Nick and jumping in and creating a website for my lodge and everything, I managed to work my way into the Vice Grand position. And this year I am the Vice Grand of Los Angeles Golden Rule 35. So yes, thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you.
Achievement unlocked.
Next year you can be Noble Grand of the oldest lodge in Southern California, and then you can go to the Grand Lodge. Where do they hold that? Modesto, Fresno, somewhere in the valley there.
All over the place.
Yeah.
And
then
all downhill from here.
Then you can run for Grand Warden of California. Then you can take over. Hey, here's an idea. When you do become Grand Master of California, a hostile takeover of the Grand Lodge of Nevada. Just go to war with them. Just like, all right, we're coming for you, Nevada. It's all over. We're going to turn you into a district of California.
Yeah. So that's on my to-do list. And other than that, I just want to, if anybody has any questions, if you're trying to get in contact or you're interested about Odd Fellowship, or you have suggestions, you can always email us at our email, which is the number 3 linksoddcast@gmail.com. That's with the number 3. Or you could visit our website, which is 3 spelled out, THREE, linksoddcast.com. And you can also check that out as well. So anybody who's interested, whether in California, Virginia, Colorado, wherever you may be, you can always send us, drop us a line, and we'll try to help you get to where you're going and hopefully answer any questions you might have. And that's about it.
Excellent. Well, thank you, brother. Okay, we got Janet and Nick. Who wants to give us something for
Okay.
the Odd Podge?
I'll go. I would just like to say that Virginia has a scholarship program, and it was called the MOM, Memorial Scholarship Fund, which stood for Martha O. Mangelsdorf, who was a past president of the Rebecca Assembly and unfortunately passed away right after her session as president. And she had always wanted to go to college and was never able to. And so we've formed this scholarship fund in memory of her. And since we've done that, we have slightly changed the name of the scholarship fund to reflect and include all of the past presiding officers from all the units. So it's now the Past Presiding Officers Memorial Scholarship Fund. And it's available to anyone. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to be a family member of a member. And you just have to be able to prove that you're going to an accredited college or trade school. And that's also part of our friendship, love, and truth, and giving and helping out and educating the orphans.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Where
Okay.
where are applications available to be found for that?
They will be on the website. I will give Nick a link. My daughter just said, tell him it's on the website.
So you're saying the
Oh.
website is an important communication tool.
Yes, it is. Well, yeah, I get calls from strangers all the time saying that they got my name off the website. Do I know so-and-so, their relative? They belong to Lodge something, something back in 1899, 1905. Nope. But, I mean, I get calls probably 2 or 3 times a month from people that are looking to either sell something that they got that they think might be worth money, or to try to find a relative from a lodge that hasn't been in existence for 50 years. But it's interesting. It's nice to talk to different people from different places. So. But that's all I have. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. This was very, very, very interesting and very informative.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
for joining us
Thank
and
you.
telling your story. Okay, Brother Nick, you're the last one. What do you have for the Odd Podge?
Well, I'll just do another plug for our website and just leave it at that. But I will add on to what Sister Janet said when she said the lodge has been closed for 50 years as an example. We didn't mention this, but Chester Lodge has been closed for 75 years. So we rebirthed this
Oh,
lodge.
wow.
It wasn't
Nice.
totally new. So hopefully maybe that'll be a thing of encouragement for somebody somewhere. As
So you have a continuing history and a legacy of a past.
yes,
Yeah.
and
Nice.
our history in the previous lodge had some very well-known community leaders in it. So, which is part of the reason we chose to rebirth that lodge.
Nice.
But anyways, our website, for those that missed it earlier, is Oddfellows. The Grand Lodge of Virginia website, we'll start with that, is Oddfellows Virginia, spelled out, oddfellowsvirginia.org. And if you go to that website, go to our contact page when you get done browsing, send us a note and let us know what you liked the most about our website. Let us know you were there, where you're from. And our Chester website, our lodge website is ChesterOddfellows281.org, all spelled out. ChesterOddfellows281.org. Thank you so much for having us.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. What we want to do on the podcast is share the stories of Odd Fellowship so that other people in other places can hear about what's going on. Because if you only look in your local area, Odd Fellowship always seems like it's kind of stagnant. It's the same people going to the same lodges over and over until there aren't enough left and they give up their charter. But that's not the story. The story is that despite everything else that's going on, there are still people who are finding Odd Fellowship, seeing the value in it, and they are bringing life back to the order. And interestingly enough for me, so much of that growth has happened in the South. It's been places like the new lodges in Atlanta, the one that you have there in Virginia, the 2 new lodges in Louisiana, the new lodges recently in Texas. There's something about the South that people down there are getting together, and they're finding Odd Fellowship. Maybe it's sweet tea. Maybe I need to start getting people in the Northwest to just dump a bunch of sugar in their iced tea. Maybe that's what it is.
Sweet tea.
That's right. The house wine of the South.
Yeah.
Well, people are yearning to come together in some fashion. So, and this is just a great opportunity.
Yes, it is. Well, thank you so much for all the work that you have done there in Virginia and everything else. Remember, you are a friend of the podcast. If you've ever got anything you'd like to share with us, just let us know. And for our listeners out there wondering what's coming up on the next episode, we got a suggestion from Reed Sutton in California who said, hey, can you do an episode about Oddfellows music? And that is kind of what we do here. You know, I am Sovereign Grand Musician, so our next episode is going to be all about the musical legacy of Odd Fellowship. So thank you, everyone, for listening, and goodbye.